The Grand Regal Hotel in Manhattan was unlike any other. A symbol of wealth and power, its towering glass exterior reflected the city lights like a beacon for the elite. Inside, its marble floors, golden chandeliers, and velvet-draped lounges oozed exclusivity. It was a place where business moguls closed billion-dollar deals, where politicians whispered secrets, and where celebrities sought refuge from the flashing cameras of the outside world. But tonight, the Grand Regal was hosting a very different kind of gathering. Barron Trump, now in his early 20s, had received a mysterious invitation, a private event. No press, no social media, just a select few guests hand-picked by an unknown host. The message was clear. You are invited to a night of conversation that could change everything. Grand Regal Hotel, 10 p.m. Room 512. Barron wasn't the type to be easily intrigued, but something about this felt off. Was this a business opportunity? A political ambush? Or something else entirely? Still, curiosity got the best of him. He donned a sharp black suit, smoothed his tie, and stepped into a waiting black SUV. As the car pulled up to the hotel's grand entrance, Barron couldn't shake the feeling that this night would be anything but ordinary. Little did he know, by the time the sun rose, he would be trapped inside the hotel, hunted, and forced to make a choice that could change his life forever. As Barron entered the dimly lit penthouse suite, he immediately noticed something unusual. There were no security guards, no event banners, no signs of an official meeting. Instead, a small group of men and women in designer suits stood around the lavish room, murmuring in hushed voices. The tension was thick, the air electric with suspicion. A tall, silver-haired man turned to Barron with a knowing smirk. "We were wondering if you'd actually show up," he said, motioning toward an empty seat. Barron didn't sit. He scanned the room. These weren't politicians or corporate CEOs, at least not the ones he was used to. "What is this about?" he asked coolly. The silver-haired man chuckled, swirling the drink in his hand. "We know who you are, Barron. More importantly, we know what you could become. Your last name is a weapon, one that hasn't been used to its full potential." A woman in a dark red dress stepped forward. "We invited you because the world is changing. There's a power shift happening right now, and we want to know where you stand." Barron's eyes narrowed. "And if I don't stand with you?" The man's smirk faded. "Then you're in the wrong place, kid." The doors locked with a quiet click. Barron Trump had just walked into a trap, and the game had only begun. Barron's instincts kicked in. He subtly reached for his phone, but no signal. A quick glance at the windows, reinforced glass, no easy exit. He was cut off, completely at their mercy. "You really think this is how you get me on your side?" he said, keeping his tone steady. The woman in red smiled. "Not at all. We just need you to listen." She pulled out a tablet and placed it on the glass coffee table. The screen flickered to life, showing confidential documents, surveillance footage, classified political intel. "We have information that could make or break entire governments," she continued. "Your father's name carries weight, but the future belongs to those who hold the real power. And right now, that could be you, if you're willing to play the game." Barron clenched his jaw. He knew power games. He had spent his entire life around people who played them. But something about this felt bigger, darker, dangerous. "And if I say no?" he asked, his voice low. The silver-haired man set down his drink and sighed. "Then I'm afraid we can't let you leave." Suddenly the lights flickered, and the room plunged into darkness. Then came the first gunshot. In the pitch-black room, chaos erupted. Glass shattered. People yelled. Barron hit the ground, his instincts sharper than ever. Someone had fired a shot, but at who? Security alarms blared. Barron felt a rush of adrenaline as he crawled toward the nearest exit. He had no idea who was friend or foe, but one thing was clear. He had to get out. Fast. The woman in red was gone. The silver-haired man was shouting orders to unseen figures. Barron moved toward the door, but just as he reached for the handle, a hand clamped down on his wrist. He spun around, ready to fight, but stopped when he saw a woman, maybe mid-30s, with sharp green eyes and a cut on her forehead. "Come with me if you want to survive," she whispered. "No time to hesitate." Barron nodded. Together, they bolted down a hidden corridor, the sound of footsteps chasing them close behind. This was no longer about power games. This was about staying alive. Barron followed the mysterious woman down the dimly lit hallway, his mind racing. Who was she? How did she know he needed to escape? And why was she risking her own life to help him? The sound of rushing footsteps behind them sent a fresh wave of adrenaline through his body. "Who are you?" Barron hissed as they sprinted through the narrow passage. "Later," she snapped back. "First, we get out of here alive." They reached the end of the corridor, where a rusted service elevator stood. The woman pressed the button frantically, but the numbers on the old panel moved at an agonizingly slow pace. Come on," she muttered under her breath. Barron turned to check behind them. Shadows flickered in the dim light. The men from the penthouse were getting closer. "We don't have time for this," he said, scanning the area. "There has to be another way out." Just then, the woman grabbed his arm and yanked him toward a utility door marked "Staff Only." She twisted the handle and pulled it open, revealing a narrow staircase leading downward. "This leads to the underground tunnels," she said. "Move!" Barron didn't hesitate. He lunged down the steps, his heart pounding with every movement. The woman followed closely behind, pulling the door shut just as the first of their pursuers appeared at the top of the stairs. Bang! A gunshot rang out, the bullet slamming into the door frame just inches from Barron's head. "Go! Go! Go!" the woman yelled. Barron leaped down 2 steps at a time, barely keeping his balance. The staircase twisted and turned in unpredictable directions, the dim emergency lighting barely guiding their way. "Where do these tunnels lead?" he panted. "If we're lucky?" The woman shot him a glance. "To an exit. If not, a dead end." Not exactly reassuring. They burst through another door, entering a long concrete tunnel filled with old pipes and flickering lights. It smelled of stale air and damp cement, a place that had been forgotten by time. They ran full speed, footsteps echoing as they moved through the tunnel's twists and turns. Barron risked a glance back and saw 3 figures entering behind them, guns drawn. They weren't trying to capture him. They were trying to kill him. Barron's mind raced. He had no weapons, no security, and no way of knowing where this tunnel ended. He had never been in a situation like this before, but something in him snapped into focus. If they wanted him dead, they'd have to work for it. "How many bullets do you think they have?" he asked the woman between breaths. She let out a short, humorless laugh. "Enough to make sure neither of us walks out of here." Barron skidded to a stop and grabbed an old metal pipe from the wall, its rusted surface rough under his fingers. He turned to face their pursuers. "What the hell are you doing?" the woman hissed. "Even if we make it to the exit," Barron panted, "they'll still be behind us. We have to slow them down." Before she could argue, their pursuers opened fire. Barron dove behind an old electrical panel, metal shards exploding into the air as bullets struck it. The woman ducked behind a row of rusted pipes, reaching into her boot and pulling out a small handgun. "You had a gun this whole time?" Barron shouted. "I was hoping we wouldn't need it," she retorted. "Stay low." She fired 2 shots down the tunnel, forcing their attackers to take cover. The gunfight echoed like a drumbeat in the tight space, every shot sending sparks flying. Barron took his chance. He lunged out from cover, using his metal pipe to knock the gun out of one attacker's hands. The man stumbled back in shock. Without thinking, Barron swung again, landing a hard strike to the man's ribs. The attacker crumpled to the ground, gasping for breath. One down, but the others were still coming. "Move!" the woman yelled. Barron didn't argue. He grabbed the fallen gun and sprinted after her, his mind racing from the rush of adrenaline. This wasn't just about survival anymore. He needed to know why they wanted him dead. And more importantly, who sent them? The tunnel opened up into a large underground storage area, rows of old crates stacked high against the walls. The woman moved quickly, searching for an exit. Barron kept his eyes on the tunnel behind them, gun gripped tightly in his hand. "This place is massive," he said. "Yeah, and it's connected to every major building in the city," the woman muttered. "That means exits, but also more enemies." Barron narrowed his eyes. "Who the hell are you anyway?" She finally turned to face him, her green eyes sharp. "You can call me Olivia," she said. "And right now, I'm your only chance at getting out of here alive." "You knew this was going to happen, didn't you?" Barron accused. "I had a feeling," Olivia admitted, "but I didn't think they'd actually try to kill you tonight. Not yet, anyway." Barron stepped closer, lowering his gun slightly. "Then tell me what's really going on." Olivia took a deep breath. "It's not just you they're after," she said. "It's the name you carry, the power it holds." Barron frowned. "So, what? They want to use me?" Olivia shook her head. "No, Barron. They want to erase you before you realize the influence you have." The weight of her words settled over him. His entire life, he had avoided the spotlight, content to stay out of politics, out of business, out of the family's endless battles. But tonight had changed everything. Someone out there saw him as a threat, and they weren't going to stop until he was gone. A loud clank echoed through the warehouse. Barron and Olivia spun around just in time to see a squad of armed men entering from the opposite side. "You really thought you could escape?" a familiar voice sneered. It was the silver-haired man from the penthouse. "I gave you a choice, Barron," he continued, "but you just had to be stubborn, didn't you?" Barron gritted his teeth. "Yeah, well, I've never been good at taking orders." The men raised their weapons. Olivia tensed beside him. "We're outnumbered," she whispered. "This isn't a fight we can win." Barron tightened his grip on the gun, every muscle in his body coiled with determination. "Then we make sure they never forget why they tried to kill me in the first place." The silver-haired man smirked. "Oh, don't worry, kid. After tonight, the world won't forget you at all." And with that, the final battle began. Wow, what a ride! Barron Trump found himself trapped in a deadly game, hunted by powerful figures who saw him as a threat. But as we saw, he's not someone who backs down easily. Now the question remains, who really wants him gone, and why? Will he escape this conspiracy? Or will he turn the game around and fight back? If you enjoyed this story and want to see what happens next, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. And tell us in the comments, what do you think will happen next? Who is behind this setup? We love reading your theories. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode. Stay tuned. Blast off.